The Boston Celtics are now in the NBA Finals. And no one could have predicted this seeing where they were at the start of the new year. So this is how the Boston Celtics went from a near rebuild to facing the Warriors in the NBA Finals. Rewind to the year 2013, where the word of the year was selfie and the Harlem Shake took over the internet. The Boston Celtics are still holding on to what of the big three they still had. Ray Allen had already left for Miami, and an aging KG and Paul Pierce looked like they couldn't get it done against the Heat, who ruled the East for 4 years. So they shipped off KG and Paul Pierce to the Nets for an abundance of picks, and decided to go full rebuild. Nowadays this trade looks bad, but hindsight is always 20/20. And when this happened, everyone thought the Nets were the next super team. I mean, KG and Paul Pierce, how could they lose? The Celtics received a 2014, 16, and 17 first-round pick, and a few other players including Gerald Wallace, who looked like a solid pickup at the time. With these picks, the Celtics would pick up Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, also drafting the future Defensive Player of the Year and Marcus Smart with one of their own first-rounders. Now, we fast forward to the year 2021, where the Celtics have just gotten gentlemen swept by their old friend the Nets. Questions arise all over the NBA world, as if this duo should stay together. Boston decided to stick with it for one more year, and even picking up Dennis Schroeder for cheap in the offseason. Brad Stevens was done as head coach and promoted to general manager, and they filled that spot with Ime Udoka. Previewing the 2021 season, the Celtics looked like they could be solid. Projected to win 44 games, they entered the season with a roster that looked like this. The Celtics looked like they had something to build upon for the next season, but not everything goes as planned. Through January 16th, they were the 10th seed in the East and had a record of just 22-22. And the Celtics just looked like they didn't want to be out there, not giving any effort on either end of the floor, and that showed in their record. Shortly after a home loss to the Portland Trailblazers, quote, "The energy is about to shift." First, roster changes needed to be made. So Enes Kanter and Dennis Schroeder had to be dealt to the Rockets for Daniel Tice, and Romeo Langford and Josh Richardson gone for Derek White. But the most important move of all was signing former MVP Matt Ryan. Everyone who couldn't play both sides of the ball was now gone from the city of Boston. And suddenly everything started to click, posting a record of 25-6 since January 30th of the new year. The Celtics boosted their defensive rating to first in the league over the season despite not being a good defensive team to start. Udoka made adjustments to make this happen, such as switching Robert Williams to a free safety type player, switching everything, and having Al Horford as the primary defender in the paint. Marcus Smart being allowed to do whatever he wants on that end led to more steals, missed shots, and more opportunities in transition for the Celtics offense. The Celtics were hot, and they climbed to the second seed in the East by the end of the year, with Jason Tatum earning himself All-NBA first-team honors and Marcus Smart earning the Defensive Player of the Year, the first time a guard has won it since Gary Payton. The Celtics looked primed for a run, but standing in their way in the first round was the Brooklyn Nets. The Nets had been battling injuries, Kyrie Irving being in and out, and the James Harden trade, and a certain someone not wanting to play NBA basketball. Many people predicted the Boston Celtics to lose despite being the second seed in the East. I mean, how could you guard KD and Kyrie at the same time with shooters around them? But the Celtics figured out a way. Using their elite size and aggressiveness on the defensive end, the Celtics pressured KD and Kyrie into missing many shots and forcing many turnovers. The Celtics made it look easy, sweeping the Nets and moving on to the second round. But once again, they'd be faced with a really tough matchup. The defending champions and the Milwaukee Bucks. After a grueling 7-game series where the Celtics were down 3-2 after 5 games, they came through in a Game 7, blowing out the Bucks on their home floor and moving on to the conference finals. Standing in their way once again, the Miami Heat. A rematch of the 2020 Eastern Conference Finals where the Heat came out on top. The Celtics wanted their revenge, but it wouldn't be easy. With Jimmy Butler playing like a 2012 LeBron James, there's no telling how far he could bring this team. Back and forth blowouts between the Heat and Celtics winning led the Celtics to being up 3-2. And on the night of May 27th, the city of Boston was ready for Game 6 and a closeout opportunity. But then, Jimmy Butler had a performance for the ages. MJ's son was not going to let them lose so easily. having a performance that many compare to LeBron's in 2012, when he dismantled Boston's defense for 45 points. Many thought it'd be a repeat of that year, with the Celtics blowing another 3-2 lead and going back to the drawing books. May 29th, 2022. We tip off Game 7 in Miami, Florida. Boston takes a big lead in the first quarter and look primed for a finals appearance. The Heat claw back, leading to the final minute, where they have gotten it down to 1.
Butler, Heat can tie for the lead. Loose and Horford.
Marcus Smart would knock down 2 free throws, and the Celtics were onto the finals for the first time since 2008.
10.
Against all odds, Boston fought through roster changes, defensive struggles, and being the 10 seed before the All-Star break, to fight and claw their way all the way to being Eastern Conference champions. You have to applaud what Ime Udoka has done for this team, getting the best out of all his players, and making them a force to be reckoned with for years to come in the Eastern Conference. And that is where we sit today. Celtics ready to match up against the Warriors soon, and it should be a great matchup considering both of these teams. But that is the story of how the Boston Celtics went from down and out to being the Eastern Conference champions. Later.